And we're coming to you live for the Built Ford Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network. And wherever you are in the free Odyssey app, good Tuesday morning. It is 2024. And January 2nd, 2018 was the first time that this show was official. Boomer and Gio. It is now January 2nd, 2024, the start of year 7 of this program, which is absolutely amazing. It has been that long, 6 years in the books, and year 7 could be the biggest ever as we embark on 25 Boomer and Gio lives in 2024. We're going to try to do 2 a month now, so just look out for that. We'll be giving away tickets a little bit later to the one in November, the Thanksgiving theme one that we will be doing up in Connecticut for our listeners in the north. There's a lot of stuff going on, Boomer. I don't even know where to start. We talked about 15 different things before the show, but I would just like to say, first off, it's great seeing you, and also welcome to year 7 of Boomer and Gio.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. Happy New Year to you guys, and Happy New Year to Eddie and Al and Jerry and everybody else. And was looking forward to coming in this morning because you're right, a million things have gone on here. And one of the things that I think we should start off with, because they are our team, and that is the New York Knicks. And I actually love this trade. I love the trade because they were going nowhere. They were stuck in neutral. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to propel them to a championship, but what it does show me is that they're obviously, and I don't think they're done yet.
No,
they are trying to build the right team. I think, as much as we love and I love R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley, I also realize that, there are financial considerations to take into account here, and you got to give something to get something. And if yesterday means anything to the team and how this guy, Anunoby, is going to fit into the team, I thought he was great yesterday. I thought he's exactly what he is advertised to be. And that is a guy that runs the floor, that's a guy that plays defense, and even without knowing the system totally, was able to figure out just by his basketball acumen where to go, how to do there, how to get there, and Jalen Brunson would find him.
Yeah, and I have receipts from that day that had me saying I love the trade the minute it happened, not after what happened last night against the Timberwolves where a lot of people flip-flopped. I immediately loved it, and I know a lot of Knicks fans. The problem is all of us with our teams at times overrate our own guys because we always wanted them to work out. And a guy like R.J. Barrett, a guy like Emmanuel Quickley did absolutely everything perfectly from a professional standpoint when they were here. Yeah. And we saw guys like Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and James Harden, all these idiots in Brooklyn, and these guys were solid. They were good guys. They worked hard. They tried hard. They won a bunch of games with the Knicks. The Knicks going back to the playoffs, they were a big part of it. But like you said, they were going nowhere with these guys. R.J. Barrett, for the 3rd overall pick in the draft, was a bust. Not a bust as a player overall, but the 3rd overall pick of the draft that was going to change the fortunes of the Knicks franchise. It never happened. So they weren't going to re-sign Quickly. We saw that in the summer that he probably wasn't going to come back because they didn't bring him back on a contract. R.J. Barrett was what he was. They didn't give up a first-round pick. And Anunoby, for people who pay attention to the NBA, is a winning player on a team that had won a championship not that long ago and does things for the Knicks at that position that R.J. Barrett could not. So I loved it, and we will see what happens next. And the flexibility that they have, that's the other thing. And they still have financial flexibility, and people think, oh, Anunoby's going to be a rental. No, but guess what comes over with Anunoby is his bird rights. So the Knicks can pay him more than any other team can. So it's not going to be a rental. I'd be shocked if it were a rental. So this was a big, smart move by Leon Rose.
And by the way, Leon Rose's son represents him. So, I mean, he's staying here.
Right.
So don't worry about that. And I don't think they're done yet either. So, but again, I think everything you just said is 100% right. And there are times, when we lose players, and they're our players. And with these players, we love these players. We loved Quickley coming off the bench. We loved his offensive spark, but he was questionable defensively. R.J. Barrett was questionable defensively. This kid, Anunoby, doesn't need to have the ball in his hands. He's a guy that, is going to play defense. He's a guy that's going to be tenacious, kind of like Josh Hart is when he comes off the bench. He's tenacious, plays defense. You can't have enough of those guys doing the little things in games. I don't know whether or not, Brunson, DiVincenzo, or Julius Randle is enough to finish games. Because when you watch at the end of games and you look at who, Tom Thibodeau is looking at the bench going, all right, who are going to be my 5 guys that are going to finish these games? And that's where they were losing a lot of these games, especially on defense. So I'm all for it. I think you got to shake it up. You kept your main pieces. You added something that you didn't have. All that stuff is good. And I think a lot of this goes back to the injury to Mitchell Robinson, because Mitchell Robinson was the one that would back up all these guys on defense. If somebody screwed up, he'd be there, and he would be an impending force, if you will, for opposing players to come down the lane. So the moment he gets hurt, now all of a sudden you see the weaknesses of everybody else, especially on the defensive end of the ball, start coming to the forefront. And I have to say, I saw energy yesterday. They beat the best team in the West.
Yeah, right, and beat them pretty convincingly. They were up big in the game, got a little bit dicey, but who knew the Timberwolves would be this good? But they are. And in the first game, it was flawless. And even Julius Randle said after the game, it was just, it seemed, I got to get the exact quote, Jerry might have it, but he said it seemed like he was the exact fit for what we do. As I'm paraphrasing, which is great to hear from Julius Randle after one game playing with him.
And by the way, they did try to acquire him in the offseason.
Yeah.
They tried, and and look, they let quickly go, and it just they also had a log jam in terms of minutes. Like, who's playing? At what point in the time in the period of the game when you both had Quickly and you had R.J. Barrett, and you look down there and you got McBride, who also just signed a contract extension,
3-year deal, yeah.
And I know that Thibodeau likes him, so he's going to get some more playing time. DiVincenzo is going to get a lot more playing time, and I don't know, it kind of cleans out some of the stuff that Thibodeau had to deal with, but it also makes the team, I think, physically tougher. It makes them a tougher team. And I think that they, I don't think Mitchell Robinson's coming back this year.
No.
But if they had Mitchell Robinson in the middle of all this would be unbelievable.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't count on him at all, ever, because he is always hurt. So, yeah, it's an exciting time as you get ready for the new year. That's when the NBA, the NHL starts ramping up as you're paying more attention to the regular seasons, as football's coming down to the last week of the regular season. So it's, as a Knicks fan, there's a new energy around them with this deal. And our buddy Dimitri always texted us. He immediately was like, they gave up too much. I was out actually playing golf that day.
Screaming.
He's texting. They gave up too much and this and that. He's
so wrong.
He's right. He's a rental. He's this. I'm like, stop.
He's not a rental. He's going to be here. Stop already.
Stop it with all the nonsense. I love the trade, and I was happy.
You got to read deep into the trade, and 2 other players came along with him.
Right.
We'll see how they fit into the whole mix as well. But it's really about him, and it's about his position, what he does, and how he does it. And while he is on the court with Julius Randle, he's not going to be looking for Julius Randle to throw him the ball. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't need the ball. He can play off the ball, as we saw yesterday.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like, when you watch a hockey game, and you know the guys who know how to play, because they'll pass the puck and then they'll move and they'll put themselves in a position to be able to receive the puck back. And that's when you understand that this is how the game is supposed to be played. This is how this guy plays basketball.
Yeah.
At least that's what we saw yesterday. I don't know much more about that than that. I did call a couple people just to find out a little bit more about this young man.
Is Wally one of those people?
Yes.
Who was he leeching off of when you got a hold of him?
Well, he was in Indiana doing the Pacer game.
Oh, was he?
And
was he at Larry Bird's house?
No. And I said, get ready, because the Halliburton fans are going to be coming at you.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, they did, man. They were coming at him too, man. And of course, Halliburton's looking at him, and Halliburton obviously has the greatest game of his life.
Yep, right in front of Wally. That's got to be a tough one.
That was a tough one for him, but he made amends with Halliburton's dad after the game, and said, we all have our moments.
Yeah.
And Wally had his broadcasting moment. So
who would
there you
have
go.
thought? I mean, Wally Zerbiak, who basically has said nothing his entire broadcasting career, became a center
He
of
says
it.
a lot of things. Now, you see,
Center of this big controversy.
You are being so influenced by Al. It's not even funny.
No, I mean, I love Wally, but I mean, the guy isn't exactly a lightning rod for NBA opinions. Let's get real, you know?
He's got a lot of good opinions. Knows the sport, knows
But he's
everything about the
not
sport.
shaking, rattling the cage.
But
he did with this one.
He rattled Tyrese Halliburton's cage.
Clearly he did.
Of course he did. That
Called him a fake
phony
all-star.
Yeah, fake all-star.
Fake all-star.
Not this year.
Yeah, by the way,
Not
were
this
you
year.
a little surprised that the Raptors and the Knicks made a deal because of the history there?
Well, they're involved with lawsuits,
But
now.
also-
stealing in I know what's
Ujiri.
it? Masai Ujiri.
Yeah, right.
Basically, R.J. Barrett gets to go home.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Toronto, which is probably pretty cool for him. In the midst of the trade, it probably sucks. But once he settles in, and I don't know what he did last night. I know he played last night. He and quickly started last night for the Raptors. It's another opportunity for them. It's a great opportunity for them.
Yeah, I think they'll
I think
play
the Knicks
well
did a solid by them, if you ask me.
And quickly he's going to get more minutes. He's going to be a focal point of their offense.
And guess what? He's going to get paid.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if not by the Raptors, by somebody else.
100%. He'll have every opportunity now to show that he can be a starting point guard in this league. And, he's got to look at it as, yeah, I would have loved to have stayed with the Knicks. I would have loved to have gotten a contract with the Knicks. But you know what? The Knicks now have given me a total opportunity to show everybody that I'm as good as I think I am.
And generally, like this trade happened early, but I feel like the last few years that we have been down at the Super Bowl, there's been some sort of big thing that has gone on. I'll give you two examples. One, the 2019 season, so I guess it was beginning of 2020 before all the COVID stuff happened, down in Atlanta, the Porzingis trade.
Yep.
That happened then. And then last year in Arizona, everybody got traded, right? So Kyrie Irving got traded and Kevin Durant got traded that week. So it's always Super Bowl week where we're sitting there trying to find different storylines for who's going to be in the game. And then the NBA inserts themselves right in the middle of that week with some big, crazy shakeup. And maybe the Knicks will have another one of those if this continues to work well and then another team falls out of it or whatever. And then the next thing you know, you've got another superstar on the team that we weren't expecting.
All right. Well, you talk about how the NBA asserts itself into Super Bowl week.
Yeah.
All I can tell you is head-to-head on Christmas Day, the NBA got housed.
Oh, for sure.
In terms of ratings.
Oh,
it was brutal. I mean, their ratings were like NHL hockey ratings. And I know you guys like to make fun of that, but for those of us who love the game of the National Hockey League, we get annoyed when you guys say that. But I have to tell you, the NFL just dwarfed the NBA.
I would hope so.
I mean, crushed them.
But that's not like a shock, is it?
But then I also heard I was reading an article about Mark Cuban and why he sold the Dallas Mavericks.
Well, he's going to build like a Las Vegas and Dallas thing, isn't he?
Possibly, but also thinking that this might have been the high point of NFL franchise value, and he knew what was
NBA franchise value.
NBA franchise value, and he thinks or knows, another year, another two, another three, with ratings continuing to drop, that maybe just maybe it's not going to be worth what it is today, what it may be 3 years from now. I read that story.
These franchises, the numbers have been growing and growing and growing.
I'm just telling you, the ratings now are dipping and dipping and dipping.
Sure. Which I'm not surprised. I mean, regular season NBA, this is why they tried to fix it with the in-season tournament. I mean, it's at times insufferable. I mean, at least the Knicks are one of those teams that actually play defense during the regular season.
I know the Knicks, the Celtics, the Lakers, they still all get great local, ratings. We all still watch it. We still love it. But overall, the national ratings have dipped significantly.
Yeah, I mean,
significantly.
The NFL, I mean, it's just going to trounce everybody in every situation. And I just... these dream Super Bowl matchups that we'll talk about as the day goes on, but the dream Super Bowl matchups that I had in my head are now going right down the toilet. I mean, to see what the Baltimore Ravens did to the Miami Dolphins, oh boy.
Not only beat them, but also knocked a couple guys out, and Bradley Chubb being one of them.
That was hard to watch, man.
I know.
God, you could hear his screaming.
And why is he on the field?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just at that point, the game was over. They were down 40-something points. You could hear, to hear the screaming from the microphones that are down on the field is something that just doesn't happen. And, they've lost a ton of guys now, so that seems like it's over for them. Seems like the Ravens, who are just such a boring, and I know Lamar Jackson's not a boring player, but that franchise just overall.
Oh, he's going to win the MVP, by the way.
He is now, yeah,
without question. With the last 2 games. I mean,
no
he goes to San Francisco and beats them, and then, of course, they just put a beating down on the Dolphins. The interesting thing is that when you think about them now, he may not play this week against Pittsburgh.
Right.
And if he doesn't play this week, that will be 2 weeks off for him by the time he comes back and plays in a home playoff game, depending on who they play. But it's a weird 18 weekend. What we all needed is we needed all the division winners to lose.
Yeah.
To keep all of the wild card teams in the mix. And we kind of got some of that, but the big game, of course, is going to be now, which is amazing to me. We sat here, and Buffalo now has a chance for the number 2 seed in the AFC.
Yeah, and they
have a very good chance due to the condition that the Miami Dolphins find themselves in.
Right, absolutely. I mean, that's a game where I think most people expect Buffalo to win at this point. But Buffalo's that type of team and that type of franchise that doesn't win these type of games. If you talk to their fans, they're probably dreading this particular situation. But we got plenty of NFL to talk about.
Think of where they were.
Without a doubt.
Think of where they were 6 weeks ago.
No. But what I'm trying to say is, yes, you're right. But there are fans of teams that get into these spots where you just wait for disaster to happen. I root for one of them. Go ask Maggie. I guarantee in the break, ask Maggie if she's just scared to death of that football game.
Wait, listen.
She's a big Bills fan.
I know.
They're scared to death.
You know what I do? I do what Moose did. Hey, Mags. Isn't that what he used to say?
Yeah.
Hey,
By
Mags.
the way, I saw in your office, we were talking before the show, I saw a Merry Christmas Boomer from Maggie and Perloff, Christmas card.
Yes. And cookies.
I mean,
Give me cookies.
You guys get any of that? I didn't get any of that. Interesting move by them.
I don't know. Maybe it's because I engage in conversation with them.
I don't.
You
kidding me?
Remember when we first started here? They first started here, and they moved to the morning.
Yeah,
and you got all upset.
I did.
And you got
because I had to talk to them.
They were throwing your day off.
They still do, but I still talk to them.
I don't know.
We talk. Me and Perloff talk about all sorts of stuff.
Right.
Maggie as well. EJ, I talk to him. You got cookies and a card.
I know.
That's a suck-up spot if I've ever seen a suck-up spot.
Suck-up spot?
That is a suck-up spot to the nth degree, and you know it. You know it. There's all of us here. We're a team. All of us. And if I would be upset if it was just me and you and they didn't give something to Eddie, Al, and Jerry, I'd be upset with that too.
Can I ask you one quick question real fast?
Sure.
Your impressions of Michael Penix last night, the quarterback from the University of Washington.
Well, I will say that I just watched the highlights of the game because I did not stay up and watch that game because it's just asinine for that thing to start at 8:45 p.m. on New Year's Day, the night before everybody goes back to work and school. But anyway, I've liked this guy from the get-go. Ever since you told me about him in October, I've liked him, and I think that he made a huge case for him to be in the top 10 of the draft. And we'll see what happens in pro days and everything else, but I think he's worked himself right into that conversation.
He's I know he's weird to look at just because he's left-handed, but, man, his accuracy, he's got 11-inch hands, by the way.
Big hands.
Big hands. He's got big hands, and you can see he's got the arm.
Yeah, of course.
And every ball is a spiral. It is amazing.
Next Giants quarterback?
I'm still trying to, I was so high on him last year. I remember I was asking Phil, and Phil told me the whole story about him. Phil knew more about him than I did. And he was the highest recruit in Indiana history. And he blew his knee out, blew his shoulder out, blew his knee out again, and then finally went to Washington these last 2 years. And last year was when I first really got to see him, and I was like, man, this kid's unbelievable. And Phil was telling me his story about him and everything else. And then watching this year, he has been great.
All right, Boomer and Gio just getting started on this Tuesday morning, January 2nd, 2024. We'll get Jerry in here in just a couple of minutes.